There are things about narcissists they will never say out loud because if you knew, the entire illusion would collapse. We've all heard about the manipulation, the lies, the gaslighting. But there's another side, quiet, hidden, and far more dangerous, that they protect at all costs. They are masters of illusion, so skilled at creating a fantasy that you end up falling in love with a mask, while underneath you're walking straight into a psychological maze designed to drain your emotional core. In today's video, we're going to expose the hidden truths narcissists never want you to uncover, from their fear of being exposed, to their lack of a stable identity, to how they mirror you as a form of control. These insights won't just help you understand them, they'll help you finally break free from the emotional manipulation and the illusion of connection. Stay with me until the end of this video, because once you see these mechanisms clearly, you'll no longer feel lost, no longer blame yourself, and no longer fall so easily into toxic patterns. And if this is what you've been looking for in your healing journey, hit subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and join us. This isn't a place for blame. This is a place for awakening. One of the deepest secrets narcissists will never admit is this: they are terrified of being exposed. Not afraid that you'll hate them, not afraid that you'll leave, but afraid that you'll see them for who they truly are beneath the charm, the confidence, the perfect persona. And to them, that exposure is a kind of psychological death. Don't let their confidence fool you. No matter how powerful, charming, or in control they seem on the outside, deep down is a wounded child who never got to heal. A child who once learned, if I show who I really am, I won't be loved. So they built a false self-aversion of perfection stitched together from charm, performance, and the art of imitation. Have you noticed? When you first meet them, they seem too good to be true. They like what you like. They share your interests. They get you so quickly, so deeply that you start thinking, maybe this is fate. But it's not a connection. It's strategic mirroring, a manipulative tactic designed to lower your guard and create fast emotional attachment. Why do they do this? Because they don't have a stable identity of their own. They survive by copying you, then using that to make you fall for them. And that's when the toxic cycle begins. They become the ideal person tailored to your dreams, while underneath, they're just a mirror in human form. But here's the thing. A mirror doesn't love back. A mirror only reflects. It imitates. It survives. And when you begin to notice the inconsistencies, the emotional gaps, the moments that don't quite line up, they panic. They get angry. They blame you. Or worse, they guilt trip you for looking too closely. Because for them, truth is the enemy. They know that if you see the cracks, you'll stop chasing the illusion. And if you stop chasing, they lose control. Not because they love you, but because you are their emotional supply. That's why narcissists live in constant fear that you will one day see them. And they will do everything to prevent it. They keep you emotionally unstable. They make you doubt yourself, not them. They cast you as the savior, so you stay busy fixing them instead of observing them. But here's the painful truth. You can't love a mask forever. And eventually you begin to feel empty because deep down, you know, this relationship is one-sided. You're pouring yourself into a bottomless cup. In the next part, we'll go even deeper into why narcissists lack a real sense of identity and how they piece together bits of other people to create a false version of themselves. If you've ever been caught in the illusion of mirroring, don't miss what's coming next. And if this healing journey speaks to something inside you, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay with us. Because truth doesn't just hurt, it frees you. One of the most haunting and painful realizations you can have after being in a relationship with a narcissist is this: at some point, often too late, you wake up and realize you never truly knew who they were. At first, you believed you had connected with their soul through what seemed like deep conversations, romantic gestures, or those moments when they made you feel like we were meant to be. But slowly, the truth began to reveal itself. They don't have a clear identity. They change depending on who they're around. When they're with you, they like what you like, they say what you want to hear, they even seem to share your wounds. And yet, when you see them with someone else, they become an entirely different person, so different you barely recognize who they were with you. And the reason is simple but unsettling. They don't have a stable sense of self. They live by reflecting others, piecing together fragments of people they've known to create an ideal version of themselves, a mask. And the tragedy is, this isn't necessarily rooted in evil intent. Many narcissists grow up in emotionally unsafe environments where they weren't allowed to be themselves, where they were only loved for performing, pleasing, or meeting someone else's expectations. Without being nurtured with healthy self-esteem, they resort to borrowing identity from the outside world just to survive. This phenomenon, in psychology, is known as ego fragmentation. Narcissists don't develop a cohesive self-concept. They don't know who they are unless someone else tells them. So when they enter a relationship, they mirror you not to flatter, but because they need you to sustain their temporary sense of self. This explains why they seem to get you so well, to share uncanny common interests, to make you feel like we have everything in common. But in truth, you're falling for someone who is playing a role, and that role is you, reflected back to you through their distorted mirror. This is also why being in a relationship with a narcissist feels emotionally draining. You're not just loving, you're carrying the weight of a soul they can't hold themselves. You become the foundation for the false persona they present to the world. And when you begin to question, to doubt, or to walk away, their inner world collapses. Because when you leave, the mirror shatters, and they no longer know who they are. The dangerous part is, you lose yourself in the process without even noticing. The more you love them, the more you trade pieces of your own soul, your preferences, your values, your boundaries, your voice, just to maintain a love built on illusion. Because you're not loving a real person, you're loving a carefully assembled image of what they think you want to see. And in that process, you don't just lose them, you lose yourself. And then, after a long time in that relationship, you begin to feel exhausted, not because you loved too much, but because you were loving on behalf of both people. You were no longer yourself. You started adjusting your words, your thoughts, your interests, even your emotions, just to maintain a connection that was built on illusion. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you didn't. You were simply trying to hold together a mirror that had already cracked, while the other person never truly reflected anything but the emptiness inside them. That's when mirroring reveals its toxic power. When you first met them, you might have felt they were perfect, because they seemed to like everything you liked, dislike what you disliked, shared similar wounds, and said all the things you always wanted to hear. What you didn't realize was that these similarities didn't come from genuine connection, they came from a skill learned early in life. Copying and role-playing. Narcissists observe you quickly. They read your body language, listen to how you speak of your childhood, note your reactions to tenderness or anger, your hobbies, and especially your emotional wounds. They don't respond with real empathy, they remember. They memorize to use later, not to comfort, but to control. It's a false intimacy, incredibly deceptive. It makes you feel like someone finally gets you, and that feeling alone lowers your guard and earns your trust far too soon. But the more you give, the more they imitate. The closer you get, the more they become a magnified version of you. And in that process, you slowly lose the ability to tell who's who. When conflicts arise, they can suddenly change, becoming cold, critical, or completely denying everything they once showed. You're left stunned. How can the person who made me feel so loved suddenly become like this? The truth is, you never loved a real person. You loved a distorted reflection of yourself in a mirror they manufactured. What's even more cruel is that they later use the very things you shared sincerely against you. The fears, the pain, the vulnerability you opened up about become weapons for emotional manipulation. When you're sad, they act indifferent. When you seek comfort, they turn away. When you begin to notice their inauthenticity, they gaslight you with phrases like "you're overthinking," "I'm trying my best," or "no one understands me like you do." These aren't meant to connect, they're meant to trap you in confusion and guilt. Deep down, narcissists fear abandonment because they don't have a stable identity without someone else reflecting it back to them. But the irony is, they create the very behaviors that drive people away: control, manipulation, emotional exhaustion. They want you to stay, but they despise the fact that they need you. So they punish you by draining your energy, rather than learning how to love you as a real person. And you? If you're beginning to see this clearly, don't blame yourself. The truth is, you're not fragile, you have a big heart. It's because you have the capacity to feel deeply that you became the perfect target for someone who trades authenticity for control. But now, you're not powerless anymore. You have awareness, you have the truth, and you have a choice. If you believe that a narcissist lives as though they need no one, confident, in control, aloof, and emotionally untouchable, you've only seen the mask, not the truth behind it. Because the reality is this: narcissists don't just want others, they rely on other people's emotions to psychologically exist. They lack a stable inner self. They can't look in the mirror and see a person of worth without emotional reflection from someone else. That's why they manipulate feelings, not just to hurt, but to extract emotional reactions that validate their existence. Whether it's your anger, your pain, or your love, as long as you react, they feel real. In a brutal truth, you're not someone they love, you're a mirror they use to see themselves. That's why they mirror you, mimic your interests, and make you believe you've found your soulmate. But over time, something feels off. Things no longer flow naturally. You feel emotionally drained because they're feeding off you. They don't have emotional stability. They don't know who they are without someone defining it for them. And that makes them addicted to your reactions. When you cry, they feel powerful. When you get angry, they feel in control. When you silence your truth to please them, they feel worshipped. But it's never enough. Their inner void is a bottomless pit. And the more you give, the more they take until you're empty and they're still starving. What terrifies them most isn't blame or angry departure, it's your silence. Because when you're silent, when you no longer react, when you cut off the emotional supply, they lose their mirror. They panic. They try to pull you back, not out of love, but out of desperate need. You may have thought, I loved them deeply. Why did they do this to me? But the hard truth is, they didn't love you as a person, they loved the role you played in their emotional theater. But that need is not the same as the healthy connection you once believed it was. They don't need your heart, they need your reactions. They need your emotions to affirm their distorted sense of self. And to secure that, they'll do everything in their power to keep a bond between you and them, even if that bond is built on lies, blame, and manipulation. When you first meet them, you don't see the danger hidden behind their perfect mask. They're incredibly skilled at making a good first impression. They listen intently. They like what you like. They seem to be the perfect half you once prayed for. But the truth is, they're not connecting with you authentically. They're mirroring you, constructing a false version of themselves in order to gain your trust as quickly as possible. They don't have a solid sense of identity. All they know is how to reflect others, to please, to impress, and to make you feel safe, until the moment you hand them your heart. And from that moment, the game begins. A narcissist doesn't know how to love because they don't know who they are. From a young age, they may have learned that love is conditional, that approval only comes from pleasing others. They've never experienced unconditional love, and so they grow up with an inner void that nothing can fill except the emotions of others. They begin to rely on you not in the way trust is built, but in the way parasites cling to a host. They become emotionally dependent on you to feel valuable. Every time you're happy because of them, they feel powerful. Every time you're hurt because of them, they feel important. They slowly create a strange loop where your presence is no longer about you, but only a mirror reflecting their distorted ego. When you begin to feel exhausted, when you start to question things, when you start wondering, is this really love? They change their tactics. They'll confuse you with contradictions, pulling you close, only to push you away. They'll deny what they did, distort your memories, and make you question your own sanity. They might even blame you, saying, you're too sensitive, you always misunderstand, or worse, making you apologize for being hurt by them. The deeper you get pulled into this psychological game, the more you lose your own boundaries. You begin doing things you would never have tolerated before, forgiving without reason, turning a blind eye, hoping that one day they'll change. You start loving through endurance, not joy. And you think, if I'm just more patient, things will get better. But things never get better because you are not the problem. The narcissist harbors a deep, unspoken fear, the fear of abandonment. They know full well that if you leave, they'll have no one left to harvest emotions from. They don't know how to survive without that supply. But instead of healing, they choose control. Instead of honesty, they choose manipulation. Instead of owning their behavior, they choose to blame. And here lies the most painful truth of all. Loved for who you are. You were only kept around because your emotions served a purpose for them. Every word, every action, even their silence is meticulously calculated to achieve one outcome, to keep you from leaving. They may promise to change, cry, apologize, even pretend to be the one who's hurt. But look deeper, you'll see a pattern. They only have issues when you start to detach. When you're stable, they return to their true form. You see, this isn't coincidence. This is strategy. And felt is strategy. And in the end, it is deliberate control, designed to keep the victim from leaving so the narcissist can continue to have their needs met. When you begin to see the truth about a narcissist, you're not just exposing them, you're exposing the entire system of control that once held your heart and mind hostage. But be careful, because once you see clearly, they will feel it. And when they realize their mask no longer works on you, their reaction can become extreme, manipulative, and even psychologically dangerous. Remember this, Exposing a narcissist doesn't always mean confronting them face to face. Sometimes your calm clarity, your silent boundaries, are the strongest weapon. They're not afraid of you yelling, they're afraid of your silence. They're not afraid of conflict, they're terrified that you no longer believe them. And when you're no longer drawn in by their justifications, their emotional theatrics, or their blame games, that's when you reclaim your power. Exposing them is not about revenge, it's about liberation. It's not about proving them wrong, it's about stepping out of the twisted reality they created. So if today you're ready to walk away not with anger, but with certainty, then you're already winning. Because now you know the greatest weapon isn't accusation, it's awareness. And when you hold on to that awareness, you are no longer a victim, you are a survivor, an awakened soul. If this message resonates with you, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and let's continue walking this healing path together, where you will no longer be defined by the person who hurt you, but by the courage it took to reclaim who you truly are.